This is the third lecture in the series of object-oriented design patterns. In this lecture, we will go through solid design principles. If you haven't studied about solid design principles before, you must go through this lectures because if you are programming in object-oriented language, solid design principles is the most basic design principles that each and every developer must know. Once you know the solid design principles, after that when you go and study about the different design patterns, it will be very easy to relate that what are the basic principles based on which those design patterns were developed. So let us start with this solid design principles lecture. If you like the content of the videos in this channel, please subscribe this channel and share the videos with your friends also. So now let's begin with the solid design principles lecture. Now, in software development, object-oriented design plays a crucial role when it comes to writing flexible, scalable, maintainable, and reusable code. Now, what do you mean by flexibility or scalability of a code or maintainability of a code? So, flexibility and scalability basically means that how easy it is to add new functionalities or remove some functionalities out from your code. That is, if you are going to add some new XYZ functionality in an already existing code, whether it will be very easy to add or it is very bug prone to add. If you are feeling uncomfortable in adding new functionalities, then you must go and look on your design, that how you designed the code initially, that changing or creating a new functionality is proving to be bug prone and not very easy. By maintainability, it is meant as that once your code keeps on growing, how easily someone can comes in and understand that code, and how if someone who is new to that code base, if he or she is writing a new code, whether your code is written in such a way that it is less bug prone or it is more bug prone. Reusable code is simply, as the word suggests, that whatever code that you have written, if that is properly modularized, that is, if you have written the code in such a way that if some function is common, it is written in a separate method, or it is provided in such a way that others can also use it, then the code is reusable and you don't have to write duplicate logics multiple times in your code. So the term solid principle was first coined by Mr. Robert C. Martin, and solid basically is an acronym which is an acronym for the following 5 principles. So the S stands for single responsibility principle, the O stands for open close principle, L stands for Liskov substitution principle, the I stands for interface segregation principle, and the D stands for dependency inversion principle. So we will go through each of these 5 principles one by one, and I will try to explain with examples, and also I will try to explain in detail so that you can understand each and every principle in details. Now let us begin with the single responsibility principle. This principle says that a class should have only one reason to change. That is, it should have only one job or one purpose. Now, how do you ensure that what is that one purpose or what is that one job? Now, this is a very abstract topic which is based on case-to-case basis and person-to-person understanding. But if you have to write it down some very basic ground rules for this principle, that is, one class should only operate on one entity. That is, in any code base, in any object-oriented programming pattern, you have different entities which you model using your classes. So one class, which is, let's say you have an project where you have human as a class. So human class should only work on human classes business problems. It shouldn't start working on vehicles business problem. Now, how do you make sure that you can design your code in such a way that classes keep on using this principle properly? So you should use layers in your program and try to break down classes which takes care of more than one entity in your design. That is, if you find that, let's take an example that you have a class which is named as, let's say, human service, and in some place it is working on the human entity, and there are methods where it is working on vehicle entity. So you should break the class in 2 classes. One should be human service and the second should be vehicle service. So that methods which are working on vehicle entity, they should go to the vehicle service, and the methods which are working on human entity, they should stay in the human service. In that way, you can ensure that one class, that is the human service, has only one reason to change, and that is any reason in behavior of humans. And the vehicle class, vehicle service, has only one reason to change, and that is any change in behavior of vehicles. Now, there are very basic rules in way in which you can make sure that your code should follow this principle. So let's say if you are going to refactor a code and you want to make sure that single responsibility principle is followed. So as I told you earlier also, that you should be looking towards breaking down God classes. God classes are basically classes which are working on multiple entities, as in the example of human and vehicle. So you should be trying to breaking down those classes and divide it into independent modules or independent classes. Now let us look in the open closed principle. Now open closed principle states that software entities, by software entities we mean classes, modules and functions or methods. So software entities should be open for extension but closed for modification. What does it mean? It means that whenever you have to, let's say you have a class of human service. Now you want to change some behavior in it. So in the class human service, you should be able to add new features by extending the functionalities rather than modifying the pre-existing code. So let's say you have to add a behavior. So rather than going into a pre-existing method and write a if block inside it, you should be writing a new method in which you are providing that new functionalities. So it simply means that they are open for extension but closed for modification. That is, the pre-written code, the code which was written earlier, should not be modified, but the code that was written earlier, new code can be added to that code. So be it on methods, be it on classes, or be it on modules. So OCP is basically, in very simple language, is if you want to add a behavior in an existing code base, you should create a new class or module or method rather than changing the current class, method or module. So if you want to look at a very crude example of OCP, the factory pattern is a great example of OCP. In factory pattern, I will explain in the lecture in which I will explain factory pattern in very detail. But factory pattern is basically what you do is you add a factory which provides you objects on the basis of some parameter. So whenever you have to add a new implementation, you just pass a new parameter to the factory, and the factory adds that implementation inside its method, and it returns that implementation's object. So I feel personally that OCP is one of the most important principle as a developer you should follow, because in any organization where as the organization grows, the code base tends to grow very large, or in any places where you have programmed a service, it's very common that some new developer will come in and he or she will start programming in that service. So if you keep on existing the current code snippets to add new functionalities, it might result in bugs in the existing code base or in the existing functionalities. Also, it increases a lot of scope for the QA people to test the entire workflow rather than adding the new functionalities as a separate module or as a separate method. Now, Liskov substitution principle. So according to this principle, derived or child classes must be substitutable for the base or parent classes. So this principle ensures that any class that is the child of a parent class should be usable in place of its parent without any unexpected behavior. It is kind of very obvious that wherever there is some method which is expecting a parent class, you can actually send the child class or the actual concrete class. If some method is expecting an abstract class object or an interfaces object, you generally send the child class or the concrete class object in place of the parent class. So, but to do that, Liskov substitution principle, so this is a very basic point, that a parent class is in place of parent class, you can use a child class. But then why Liskov substitution principle is so important? So if you look deeper into it, what it tends to mean is that whatever the behavior which was intended for the parent class, the base class should completely follow that behavior or should completely honor that behavior. So let us look deeper into it, that when Liskov substitution principle fails, and in which cases you should you should prevent yourself or avoid inheriting from parent class until or unless it is must that the child class follows all the uh, behavioral things present in the parent class. So if you remember in the lecture previous to this, I explained how inheritance and composition are different, and why in general you should follow composition rather than inheritance until or unless the child class and the parent class follows strict parent child relationship, and the child class actually honors each and every behavior which is present in the parent class. So Leskov substitution principle is more or less in that direction, that the inheritance part, or the in case you are inheriting, or in case you are implementing an interface, the child class must completely follow the behaviors of the implementing interface or the inheriting parent class. Let's take an example of what happens if the child class doesn't completely follows the behavior of a parent class and still you are inheriting. So in mathematics we know that a square is a rectangle. Indeed it is a specialization of a rectangle, and you see that there is a relationship. So some cases while you are coding, you might be very intrigued to use rectangle as a parent class for a square. But as you know that in rectangle the behavior is that width will be set independently and height will be set independently. But for a square that behavior is incorrect. For a square, if you are setting the width, the height should also get changed, and if you are setting the height, the width should also get changed. So if you try to code that using code square using rectangle as a parent class, you are breaking the actual behavior. So wherever rectangle is expected, if you send an object of square, generally you will end up by screwing the square object's behavior or the parent class's intended behavior. So this is a very great example of when inheritance should not be used, because it seems that a square is a rectangle, but the parent-child relationship or the behavior between the parent and child is not completely followed. Interface segregation principle. The interface segregation principle is something which is also depending on the inheritance behavior, more or less. That interface segregation principle tells that rather than having a single interface and providing all the functionalities in that interface and making multiple child classes to implement from that interface, in those cases there are multiple child classes who are actually inheriting behaviors which are not useful for them. So let's go through the definition first. That in programming, the interface segregation principle states that no client, by client it means the classes which are implementing the interfaces. So the interface segregation principle states that no client should be forced to depend on methods it does not use. It means that if you have interfaces which have lots of functionalities and lots of child classes are implementing that interface, so there will be cases where child classes are actually implementing some methods which are not relevant for those child classes. So what this segregation principle, by name it is segregation, so it means that you should divide up those interfaces into multiple interface and make sure that all the child classes are only implementing those interfaces for which the behavior of parent child is completely valid. That is, each and every behavior which is present in the interface should be valid for the implementing child class. So simple to the example of inheritance, or similar to the example of inheritance, that each behavior which is present in the parent, until or unless it is valid for a child class, you shouldn't be inheriting the parent class from the child class. Similarly, each and every method which is present in the interface, until or unless it is completely valid or completely useful for the implementing class, the implementing class shouldn't be implementing the interface. The dependency inversion principle. Now, dependency inversion principle is very difficult to understand in the beginning. So, if you haven't, if you have guys used dependency injection before, it will be more easier for you guys to understand. And in any case, in this lecture, I will just explain the very light terms about what dependency inversion principle is. But in the upcoming lectures, I will create a complete demo where I will explain how dependency injection works. How can you make your code? How can you create dependency injection inside your code? What are the benefits of using dependency injection, and why people use dependency injection. So dependency injection is a way of dependency inversion principle. It is a way of implementing dependency inversion principle. So in very simple language, what dependency inversion principle means is that higher level modules should not depend on low level modules. Both should depend on abstractions. So what does it mean? Let's say an object A requires object B to function. Let's say human requires uh, limbs class to function. So the human should not completely depend on the implementation of the limbs class. It should depend on abstraction. So what do you mean by abstraction? It means that the higher level modules should not be communicating directly with the concrete classes. It should be communicating using either interface or an abstract class. In the dependency injection lecture, I will make sure to explain why this is so much useful, and if you don't do that, what are the pitfalls that you might face. So I hope you guys liked this lecture, and I hope I explained the solid principles in details and in very clear way. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me in my YouTube channel. You can ask, you can write comments down below, and I will respond to them. And if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends also. Thank you.